Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a bit of foiling to start with, and I've got my foil press, my Gemini foil press on here. And this first one I've done at a low temperature and then for 30 seconds. And I did mess around with this because I have some multi-surface foils and I should just get some normal Papercraft foils, which is what I went with in the end. Because I have one that came with the machine. And this is a PinkFresh Studio Chevron die plate, hot foil plate. But look at how beautiful that is. Now, I did not get this result with the multi-surface foils. I had issues. So although I filmed it, I did not put it in the video because it was so painful. But I think there is a way you can use those for your for paper. They are meant for things like leather and fabric and things. So now I have the Folk Garden set, the hot foil plate that I'm going to run through in a second with some gold foil, and this is so pretty. It's so delicately detailed. But I'm going to show you there are four pieces, if you like, in this set, and I'm going to show you how they all work together for this PinkFresh Studio Folk Garden. So that's the plate that I've taken off there, and I will show you the reveal in a minute when I get this tape off. Look at that. Isn't that so pretty? It's so delicately pretty. I just love it. And I keep the off cut, or the waste in inverted commas, this piece, because there is a way that you can actually foil that. If you've got the right shims and that, you can actually then foil the entire thing. But we're going to talk about the Folk Garden. So in this set there is, and you can buy them individually, but I got all four of them. So I have the cling mount stamp, then there is a set of 4 stencils. There is also a coordinating die, and there's the hot foil plate, which you've just seen me use. So we've seen how the hot foil works, and I needed to do that first before we do the next few things. So you can use the die to die cut the hot foil, the stamped, or the stencil, or a combination of them. So we're going to start with the stamping, and I'm going to, or am I starting with it? I am starting with stamping. I did this ages ago. So I'm going to start with the stamp and just show you that you can obviously use it as, it's a beautiful background, so you could use it as a nice background stamp, which is beautiful, and you could ink it and then color it in with Copic markers, or your alcohol markers, or you could color it in with pencils or whatever you like. But we're going to stencil it, and this is where I think this is so genius. I love this. I think this is so clever. You don't need to have all these pieces, but I think why not? They all work together. It's beautiful. So I've inked up the back with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I used this ink so that I could use it with, it's like a pigment ink, but when it dries permanent. So you can use it with your dye inks and things like that. I wouldn't use it with Copic markers though. So if you wanted to color this in, then I would use it a Copic friendly or an alcohol friendly ink instead. So I'm just doing a bit of cleanup, and because it's a cling mounted stamp, I just stuck it to my table and it worked. I didn't need it on the block, and it's actually easier sometimes with background stamps to ink and then stamp them that way. So we've got our background stamped, so we've used the stamp part of it. I'm now going to use the stencils, and I'm going to start by showing you what the stencils look like just stenciled. Now there is a little marker in the corner there, so that's kind of where I started for this one. When it comes to the foiled piece and the stamped image, I just use the stencil and line it up with the foiling or the stamped areas. It's just easier because if you've stamped it slightly off, center or something like that, the key in the corner is not going to line up properly anyway. So I have a pale, I'm using Stampin' Up! Inks today, and I will list the colours below, but I have a pale green here, which I think is soft seafoam, and I'm using that for layer 1. Now the stencils are marked as layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, etc. And I am just getting that ink on there. Super easy. And I found that you could either do this and have this as a little background, just as something in the background. I think it's still pretty. But you won't have the detail that you'll have, the extra detail that you'll have on both the stamped and the foiled pieces, which you'll see when we get there. So that's layer 1. Really doesn't look like much at this point. And then we're going to do layer 2. So for layer 2, I then lined up with the, you can use the corners because I'm just doing the stencil part of this for you guys now. Or I just line it up as best I can with the previous layer. And now I've got some Granny Apple Green ink, and I'm going to go over the top of that. And as you get through each layer of stencil, the openings get like less of them and smaller. So it'll make sense once you actually see the effect on there. And I probably should have taped this better, but I'm just holding it down. I would tape it in place if you're a bit more nervous about it moving. So that's the next layer, and this layer was slightly darker than the other layer, the other ink, sorry. So when you take this off, suddenly you've got these beautiful leaves. Ta-da! So I had to kind of wing this bit because obviously I don't have the detail of the image, of the whole image. Like I say, that you will have with the foiled and the stamped images. So I just kind of lined it up as best I could and it worked out fine. So this is, I want to say this is Petal Pink, and it's again a paler pink than the next one. So again, it doesn't really look like much at this point until we add the final layer, which I'm going to use Blushing Bride. And on this final layer, there's like maybe 3 openings or something. So the stencils themselves, I always think it looks kind of funny because it's just like, oh, there's a little bit there and a little bit there and maybe one bit over there, and that's it. But it makes a huge difference. You'll see it'll just suddenly come together, and it'll be even better when we do the other 2 panels. So just getting my ink off the top of the stencil, and then there you have just the stencil on its own. Now I think that's kind of pretty as a background, just for some graphic in the background. So I will probably use that for that kind of thing, but I'm actually going to show you how the die works with that particular one, because I wanted to keep these 2 as one piece. So I'll show you how the die works later on. So for this one, I'm lining up the stencil with the image as opposed to using those little corner markers that are on the stencil as a guide. So I'm doing it a little differently and just lining up the image, because if I didn't stamp this completely straight on the piece of paper, those markers aren't, going to help. So, and it'll be a little off key. So I think I had to go and do something if I remember right, but anyway. So again, I've got the lightest green, and these can be any dye inks that you've got. They'll work beautifully. Your oxides probably would work too, actually, because they would layer on top of each other, but they obviously will stay wet for a lot longer, so you just be aware of that when you're moving your stencil on and off and things like that. But getting the lightest one on here. And because you've already got the detail on there of the outline, it's like you're colouring in, but in like super quick, because this doesn't take long at all. I mean, I've sped this up, but it doesn't take long to actually do these little layers. So if you need a quick card, this is an easy, quick way to color these images in. This is why I say I have to have all four. So, all four pieces. There's like parts and pieces to a whole thing. And I can't help myself anyway. So that's layer 1. Then we're going to go to the next layer. And I know this is kind of repetitive because it's for each type of thing, but I wanted to show you step by step for each one, because each I guess type, like this, whether it's stamped or just stenciled or foiled, they look so different. So I just wanted to show you each one, and I thought that'd be kind of fun. So hopefully you're not bored at this point, but it is kind of a repetitive thing. But obviously you wouldn't necessarily make, well, you might actually, but you might not necessarily make and do how I've done this all in one go. You might specifically go, right, I'm foiling today, or I'm stamping today, and then go with it that way, you know, if you're mass producing. So for mass production, talking about that, this is really great because it's quick. So the foiling is maybe a little more time consuming because you've got to foil all the layers, but you've got to foil the first piece, and obviously you've got to have your machine out to do that. But if you're inking, so stamping and then inking the stencil images over the top, it's pretty quick. Yeah, so this is coming together nicely already, and it's just so easy because it's colored in already. I love it, and it's got some dimension, can't talk, because of the layers of colors that you're adding to it. So again, always do the lighter pink is next, and because you've got the stamped image, you can kind of see even through the stencil, you can kind of see how the image is sort of coming together. It's so pretty. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I will for sure I've only got the one, well, I say only. I have enough stuff, let's just face it. But we always want more, don't we, crafters? Yes, please. Don't say I'm the only person who's like that. And I have this one set, but I will definitely be investing in the next one. It is a bit of an investment. Obviously, if you don't have a foiling machine, then I would still go for the stamp and the stencils at the very minimum, and just make some great backgrounds. If you can then go to the die as well, then that just opens up another level for you, if you're not into foiling and that sort of thing. And there it is. That's that stamped image. I will show these in slow motion so you can have a good look at them in a minute. But isn't that so pretty? I just love it. And I did use the same colors so you could do a good comparison between all of them. So now we're going to do exactly the same thing again, but we're going to do this on the foiled one. This is just, I think this is my favorite because it's just got that lovely hint of foiling around the edge. And it's so pretty. So again, lining up, I always put my stencils back in order as well when I was doing this. It just made it easier for me to remember where I was. They are numbered as like layer 1 or layer A. Are they 1, 2, 3, or are they A, B, C? I'm not sure. But anyway, they're numbered, so you'll know which one's which and which one you do first. And then, yeah, just going from there. So the leaves, you definitely need 2 shades. Now that I'm watching this back, the flowers, you probably don't need 2 shades of the same color. I think it looks pretty, so that's why I stuck with it. But I think because you're not necessarily layering on top, I don't believe you're layering, for the flowers you're kind of next to, so you could have 2 different colors altogether. You could have a purple and a pink or something like that instead. So lining up for the next layer of leaves. And with the foiling, it's because it's shiny, it's beautiful, but it's a little harder to see. And my eyes are not as good as they used to be, so, you know. But honestly, even if, and in one of them I do go a little off, like it's a little out the lines, I didn't worry about it. It still looks really nice, and I'm just in love with it. So, I'm sorry it's taken so long to get this video to you guys, but well, you know, Christmas, Halloween kind of took over, so I thought I'd save it for the new year. So this is just a piece of copy paper. This is just another way that, and an easier way that you can clean things like your stencils, is as you rub the ink off the stencil, it actually rubs it onto the paper, and that means it's clinging to the paper as opposed to then having to wipe off your work surface or something like that. It makes cleanup a lot simpler and a lot easier with things like stencils. So that's just another quick tip. And even if you wet your the like cloth that you were using, or however you clean them, even if it was a damp cloth or something like that, it will still then push that onto the paper, the copy paper, as opposed to then smearing underneath the stencil. So basically the paper absorbs the moisture, and then you're not having to clean the back of the stencil and then turn it over like you've seen me do in a few videos. This is such a simple tip, and I always forget to do it, so I'm glad I remembered in this video. So the last layer for the foiling is the Blushing Bride one. Just lining it up and getting that on there. Again, I think this one has like 3 spots that it needs it. So pretty. And that's it. It's that easy. I didn't make cards with these because I wanted to sort of showcase the actual like process of it, or like how cool these things look. But I will obviously be back making some cards with them at some point. I just wanted to sort of, like I say, showcase these. So pretty. So I'm just going to try and get these in some sort of order so you guys can see what's what. Just to sort of, if I can get it in the camera shot, of course. So I was editing this, it was kind of funny. So we have the stencils, the stamped one, and the foil. And do you see the stencil doesn't have as much detail on it because it's obviously just the like bits that will colour in. And then this is the foil with the stencil. It's just so pretty. I love it. I love both effects. I love the foiling and the stamped. So this is the die. So it doesn't die cut every single thing. But I thought what I'd do is, because I have just the stenciled one, I'll just use that to show you how and what pieces it die cuts out. So I will get that die cut for you, and it lines up really nicely. Again, you can line it up even better when you've got a stamped image, and there's extra details there, like little sprigs, or is that what they're called, that are coming from the leaves and things that you obviously won't have with the stencil because it's just filling in the sort of empty spaces. So I will just get that die cut, and then I will show you what it cuts out in a second. So it cuts the main pieces. To be fair, even just stenciled, other than the very big one, the rest of them I think you could still use as just an extra element on your card or your scrapbook page, or you know, whatever you're using it for, even without all the extra detail. But I think adding the stamped image at least, it adds so much to it. And you don't have to do it in black. I obviously used a black ink for the stamped bit. You could use a brown, or you can use whatever colour you like, really. But I just went with black because that's kind of, most people will do that, I think. So just getting all the pieces out, the little bits in the middle, which I love that it cuts the centre bits out as well. So do you see how there's some white space on that main image? There's just little details that are left out. Like this one's pretty much there, and a couple of the little spriggy bits. But I think, you know, so I think you can use it that way if you wanted to. But I think having the stamp and the foil, or even at the minimum the foiling, the stamped, the stamp will just give you that extra added touch to it. So there's all the pieces there, and I will just walk you through now each bit on its own. So this is just the stencil on its own, so there's no extra detail. It's literally the filling in bits for the background, but it's still pretty. I think you could still use that for something. And then this is where we stamped it and then used the stencil over the top to colour the sections in. It's so pretty. I just love it. And then this is the foiled one, and it's just, foiling is just a whole other level of stuff. I just love it. So shiny. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this helps you if you were on the fence about buying some of these parts and pieces. But I think for me, having all 4 of them works really well together. They are just a must-have for me now. But it is more of an investment because there are quite a lot of, there's 4 bits that you'd have to buy to get like a whole set, if you like. So I'm thinking with that chevron, I could use the bits and make a card out of that as well as an alternative. So I hope you enjoy this, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.